back with Neil Peart as we're loading up the board here coast to coast, live on Life. We're talking about drumming and, of course, his passion, his vocation, his calling, if you will, working now with the Buddy Rich Big Band, Burning for Buddy Vol.II. We've already established this guy was the ultimate, and there was quite a gap below that. So you've mentioned there's a clip watching Buddy play. If we can take a look at that, too. I'm fascinated. Let's cut right to the chase. This was the late, great Buddy Rich. That's happening on a whole other level, sort of an unconscious level.
There's so much going on there, and bass drum's going opposite to the snare drum, and the same number of beats happen. You'll see one hand just whip off, and there's still as much going on with one hand.
You know, I've got to say this, and I'm not being facetious. What I'm almost equally impressed by is the fact that you see in rock concerts guys, you know, wearing just the singlet or whatever, you know, sleeves.
It's hard to play in a suit.
He's got a suit on.
It's hard.
And a tie.
Yeah.
And he's looking cool.
Yeah, when I did the live show with the big band, I thought, yeah, I'm going to wear the suit, I'm going to wear the turtleneck and all that, and it was hard.
Yeah, so showing complete composure. I'm curious now, when you talk about rock and jazz, was it a difficult transition for you to do, or pretty much, because I know you changed your kit. You've got a massive kit in concert.
Yeah, just as kind of a challenge to myself, I just had a 4-drum setup, the classic thing for this, because I really wanted to just face that challenge. And also I had a lot to learn. I was coming into something head first into the deepest waters with no experience. So that was a bit daunting too. So I thought I'll keep it simple, and I used Buddy's parts as my guide, because all of the tracks on the 2 tributes really come from his band charts. So I used what Buddy played as a guide of that's what a guy should be playing. And on the early stuff, in fact, it was pretty much an imitation. And in the intervening couple of years, I studied a lot and practiced a lot and learned more about it, and went back and recorded the track that appears on Vol.II again, just to see what the difference would be. And ironically, where I started out the first time just with enthusiasm and sincerity, it worked. And I was quite happy with it. I learned a lot of subtleties, and I learned to feel the rhythm a little different way that was easier for the other musicians to play along with, and they commented on that when I redid it 2 years later. And I used the new version on the record just for the virtue of those simple things. But on the documentary, I used the old one because we had footage of that, and I really wasn't that unhappy with it. It was still enthusiastic and sincere and pretty much exciting.
Yeah. Which is more demanding, playing the smaller kit or, you know, the big full gamut concert?
It's more athletic, certainly. You know, both are pretty much. Your whole brain is at work in either case anyway, but I think rock drumming is just that much more physical and requires that much more of kind of every ounce of strength I have, as well as
Rush does long shows too.
Yeah, we play almost 3 hours, and a lot of it's full out. Immense concentration, immense accuracy, and because you're in an arena too, you have to concentrate so hard to be on top of it, to make sure the rest of the band's locked in, and subtleties you get into after 20 years on the road. Or I'll listen to live tapes on the day after the show, and it's okay, if I pulled that back a little bit, you know, the vocals would sit a little better, or I'm pushing here. And
you're a real student of it, aren't you? I mean, well, to the point that you've even taken on a mentor who has helped you enter a new phase of drumming. Tell me a little bit about that.
I expect that part of this project came about out of a little bit of musical restlessness, that I was starting to feel a little bit constricted myself, that I developed a style of my own to some extent, but it was starting to feel a little stiff, and I didn't know where to go, frankly, but I thought, okay, after we had time, I'll try some new style of music. And during the process, I actually met a man, Freddie Gruber, a 70-year-old jazz drummer who's been teaching now for over 30 years, and he teaches a very physical approach to the drums, much like a tennis coach would teach a tennis player. It's all about the movement between the beats, and he got me working on that, and I found the discipline in modern everyday life to go down in the basement every day and practice on these things and work on the exercises and hold the sticks differently, set up the drums differently, started again. I just totally started again and discovered what I knew before I had to discover from a new direction, and it was a wonderful challenge to do that, just to say, okay, I'm going to do it, and find the discipline, and it paid off in spades with Rush.II. You know, the most recent album that we've recorded, I'm so much happier with the way I'm playing on it. The other guys in the band have noticed the difference of how the time sense is constructed in the music, and they have to play a little bit differently to sit in with that. It's so subtle that no listener should ever notice it, and they don't need to. But the fact that I was able to rebuild something more comfortable rhythmically, and the other members of the band could sit into that in a slightly different way, it does affect the music. It makes it more comfortable to listen to, I'm sure.
Interesting. I just wonder if because it's such a variation of small degrees, if any of the listeners, people of the new album have.
It's a nano-Weber, and anyone, I think they'd be imagining it, because it's still me. It's still me playing energetic and busy, just as I have for 30 years, and that doesn't change. The personality doesn't change. It just, I think, made it a little more comfortable for me to do it.
All right. Let's start with Tony in Brampton, Ontario, for Neil Peart. You're live on Life, Tony. Hello.
Hello. Good evening, gentlemen.
Hi.
Hi, Tony.
Oh, it's a tremendous pleasure to speak to you, Mr. Peart.
Thank you.
I wanted to thank you and Getty and Alex for just years of great music, and also for being great ambassadors of Canada. I love seeing you're Canadian. That's great.
We like it too.
Actually, I was wondering if I could please talk about your love of literature. I'm a teacher, and I enjoy using some of your works and also some of the books that you've read over the years as an example. For example, my favorite thing is to say that you once read 10 books to write the Manhattan Project, to make sure all the historical facts were relevant.
Yeah, right.
And I was wondering if you can comment on that, because I don't want to take away from other parts of the curriculum, but I really enjoy it, because the kids get excited that a rock star reads books. It's incredible.
Even writes them. We can talk about that in a moment or two ago. But,
is that right?
Yeah, certainly I was reading long before I was drumming. Right through grade school, it was an addiction, and then music took over, and I kind of forgot about books for a while, and then it became a way on the road to entertain myself and also to educate myself, because here I was, having spent most of my formative years playing drums, which can be very limiting in the rest of life. There's another drummer, Bill Bruford, described it as life beyond the cymbals, and I thought that was a beautiful phrase, and I wanted to discover that, so I just started reading on the road, and there is so much waiting time, so much traveling time, that it worked perfectly. It's so portable, you can carry books everywhere, so I just set out to learn about all the things that interested me. And the song you mentioned there, I was writing a song about the dawn of the nuclear age and the invention of the atomic bomb, and as you point out, yes, I had to get my facts straight, so because that was an historical song, I had to do some research to find out what people were thinking and how their living conditions, working conditions were, what was the prevailing mode of thought in 1944. I mean, I had to know those things to be able to write it with any conviction.
Great question, Tony. We thank you for it. Continued success in the classroom. I alluded to a book. We'll come back. We'll touch on that. And also the fact when they speak of the literate Neil Peart, many people say that you're responsible for taking Rush in that art rock direction. And we can touch on that, too. Let's come back. We'll take a time out. We're loaded up full on the board, too. We'll quickly run through the calls in a moment. Back with the drummer for Rush, Neil Peart, live on Life.